past few years, we've discussed an ongoing case of Dr. Päivi Räsänen of Finland. She's a Christian, she's a medical doctor, she's a member of the Finnish Parliament, and she was prosecuted in June of 2019 under hate speech laws for merely expressing a biblical understanding of marriage and sexuality on social media and in a radio interview, as well as in a pamphlet, catch this, that was printed some 21 years ago. Well, this is now known as the Bible tweet case, and it reached the court, the Supreme Court in Finland yesterday. So how did it all go? Well, here to fill us in is Paul Coleman. He's the Executive Director of ADF International, which is in Vienna, Austria. And ADF International has been coordinating Päivi's legal defense in all of this. Paul, welcome back to Washington Watch. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an extraordinary...
It is. Go with that. Kind of introduce us to this case. What is behind it? Really, give us how this is unfolding right now.
It has been an extraordinary 6.5 years. As you say, it began in the summer of 2019. And so just in terms of numbers, Päivi has endured over 13 hours of police interrogation, 4 criminal charges, 2 court hearings, or 3 now, including yesterday, involving 11 different judges. And the case just goes on and on. But in both lower courts, at the district court in Helsinki and then the Court of Appeal, she and Bishop Juhana, who was also charged for publishing this booklet 21 years ago, they were acquitted unanimously both times. But under the Finnish system, the prosecutor is allowed to appeal not guilty verdicts. So having lost twice, the prosecutor then appealed this case to the Supreme Court, which took place yesterday. And so it has just been an extraordinarily long and grueling process, both for Päivi and for Bishop Juhana. But it went well yesterday. Päivi spoke well, as always, as did Bishop Juhana. And we are very confident that the Supreme Court will decide the same way as both the Court of Appeal and the District Court, and hoping and praying for a not guilty verdict.
So break down for us precisely what is it that they are being charged with? What is the actual crime?
So Finland, like all other European and Western nations, has criminal hate speech laws. Now, they often don't use this phrase, hate speech. It's a generic term that incorporates any number of different laws. But essentially, they are laws that ban speech that some people find insulting or offensive. And Finland has one such law. It's contained within the Criminal Code of Finland that has the chapter on war crimes and crimes against humanity. And so within that section of the Criminal Code is this hate speech offense. And essentially what it comes down to is Päivi expressing her deeply held beliefs on matters of public interest, matters of personal interest to her in accordance with her Christian faith, matters that emanate from the Bible. The prosecutor says that these things are offensive and insulting, and therefore should be criminalized, should be banned, should be punished. And so the case has always been about deeply theological concepts. When Päivi was in the police interrogation stage of this, she actually sat in the police station with her Bible as police officers asked her, what is the meaning of the book of Romans? For example, what is the meaning of Romans chapter 1? And then even yesterday at the Supreme Court, I was sat there behind Päivi during the trial. And again, once again, concepts of, for example, sin, what does this mean, was discussed in court. And essentially the view of the prosecutor is that the Christian concept of sin is offensive, and therefore Christians are on notice that if they use this sort of concept, that they could be also charged with the criminal offense of hate speech.
So the real crime is being offensive. I mean, and that's what it comes down to. And the Bible is looked upon as being offensive in itself in this case. It's just unbelievable. Now, look, I'm not sure how the Finnish court system may or may not be similar with the U.S. court system, but I would assume that the Finnish Supreme Court's decision would not only determine the fate of the defendants, but it would also set a precedent going forward. Is that a fair assessment?
That's exactly right. In fact, there's never been a case like this in Finland. It will set a precedent for the whole of the country, and the ramifications of the case will extend beyond the borders as well. We live now in this world of globalized law and policy, and what we see all over the place is what happens in one jurisdiction transfers over to another. And so the case will not only set a legal precedent in Finland that will have a huge impact for the entire nation, but it will also have an impact for many other nations across Europe. And the stakes could not be higher, not only for Christians, but for everyone. Because if the prosecutor is successful in this case, then essentially all Finnish people will be living in a situation where if what they say, even going back in time 2 decades, is deemed to be insulting or offensive or hurtful or whatever, then they could find themselves hauled before the courts as well.
Wow, unbelievable. How would you encourage our viewers, our listeners, to be praying right now for this case?
Well, I would say that the encouragement that Paivi and Bishop Johanna have received from the global church has been incredibly encouraging to them both. After the trial yesterday, we sat and had dinner together along with our wonderful legal team in Finland, and we talked about what a blessing it has been to have the global church praying for them, reaching out, offering support. And so I want everyone to know that is really felt by both Paivi and Bishop Johanna. They really appreciate that, and would just encourage everyone to continue praying for them, for their perseverance in what has been a very long trial, and ultimately for a victory, not just for them, but for Finland, for all of Europe.
Thank you so much, Paul Coleman of Alliance Defending Freedom International. Powerful case. We look forward to a good outcome, and we'll be praying.